today we have one of our very own chasers, Caleb Ivins, with us today. Caleb, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So a little background about me is I grew up in Bluffton, Indiana, and I grew up on the farm. So we grew corn, soybeans. I've always been in the weather as a kid. It was just always super fascinating to me, just the science behind on why it does what it's doing. And so I thought, well, why not make this a career, right? So I went to college, have a degree in agronomy, which has meteorology as a minor. And I have been storm chasing now for close to 7 years. I started out with Skywarn, which is a non-for-profit organization with the National Weather Service. And I joined ISC this past spring. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
That is awesome. So it kind of just is amazing how you've kind of married your agricultural career in with meteorology, which I think you'll agree that in Indiana, that's an important thing, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, agriculture, and there's a tight correlation between agriculture and meteorology. Like, you can't have one without the other, or one interfering one without the other. You're always going to have that correlation between the two.
Absolutely. That is pretty amazing. So we're really, really happy to have you on here. Well, actually, really happy to have you with ISC, of course, but we're really happy to have you on Chasing After Dark as one of our guest co-hosts. Here on Chasing After Dark, we try to open up with a little fun factoid that we like to call weather history. I think we'll probably wind up giving that a better pet name pretty soon here. In fact, that might be something that we can poll our listeners on. They can try to name it. What do you think, Ryan?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Got to give it a pet name at some point. But speaking of the weather history for today, we're going to go back 13 years ago to 2007, where a destructive tornado hit Napanee. It was rated an EF3, a very high-end EF3 at 165 mile-per-hour winds. Those are estimated by the severe damage that it caused over 100 structures. Despite the widespread damage, the time of day that it hit, which was, I believe, at nighttime. Or was it daytime?
Yeah.
It was nighttime, wasn't it?
No, it was a nighttime tornado.
Yeah, despite the nighttime time frame, there were no injuries reported, so that's very good to hear. Only minor injuries, should I say, no fatalities or major injuries. So that's always good to hear. But for this time of year in the fall, it's not. We talked about this on our first episode. It's not uncommon to have fall severe weather in October and November, and sometimes even into the start of December, although that's getting into the more rare zones. But, yeah, it's not uncommon to see tornadoes, especially high-end tornadoes, happen in the fall time frame.
Yeah, again, it's just those erratic temperature differences, and the atmosphere tends to become a lot more unstable with the way, again, jet streams move, hot, cold. Actually, Caleb probably could really, really lend some information or inside information on that one. Caleb actually is one of our forecasters with ISC. And I mean, the guy's a bit of a genius. If you want to know anything there is to know about what's coming, this is the guy to talk to as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, Caleb, what do you see for us coming up in the short term here?
Yeah, just like you said, Tia, it's really not uncommon to see these severe weather events come fall time here in Indiana. Just like in spring, where you have these changing of seasons, right? Where you have the cold air that's been in place all winter long that's now being pushed out by these warmer fronts coming through. That causes a lot of turbulence in the atmosphere, which can spark severe thunderstorms, right? So here in the fall time, it's exactly the opposite, where you have this warm air that's been in place all summer that's now being pushed out by these fronts coming from Canada. And that mixing of air masses can spark severe weather, which is why we call fall like our severe weather mini season, right? Where it may not last as long as the springtime, but it can still pack a punch if we get the right setup. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Near term, though, luckily I don't see any severe weather in the near term forecast, but October is looking quite beautiful for the rest of the month. Something I've been looking at is temperatures. Temperatures look to be near average or slightly above, so that's certainly wonderful compared to what we just had with frosts and such. Precipitation, though, looks to be unfortunately on the drier side, a little bit dry for October.
I'm sure that's a little bit better than what we experienced like Halloween of last year, with that little, I guess it was almost like a little mini blizzard that really impacted the greater, I guess the Fort Wayne areas where I really saw the most as far as reports of it. I know here in Huntington County, we definitely wound up having to pack up and go inside a lot sooner than we normally would with trick-or-treating, just because it just got so cold and so blustery and with these giant snowflakes. So basically don't anticipate a repeat of last year. Is that what we're getting?
As of right now, I am not seeing that. If the forecast holds true, Halloween looks to be fairly decent this year with average temperatures. Now, if you want to talk snow, I do see that coming down the pipeline, not near term, but long term. If the forecast holds true, I am seeing a cooling trend come late November into early December where we could be talking about some snow chances. But we'll see if that holds true or not as we get closer.
We could definitely start talking more about our Thanksgiving forecast and Christmas forecast moving down the line. But I think that our listeners can be, unless you're a true snow bunny, I think they're going to feel a little alleviated to know that they won't need to pull out their shovel just yet. But speaking about forecasting in general, how do you generally prepare forecasts or briefings to meet our needs at ISC or the needs of your agricultural industry and business?
Yeah, so putting together a forecast isn't something that happens overnight. It takes time, right? So how I start is I look to see, first of all, what kind of a forecast am I putting together? Is it going to be a short-term or a long-term forecast, such as a day one outlook? So that could be like a severe weather outlook. If I'm for a severe weather outlook, which would be a near-term forecast, I look at different model runs to see, okay, what is going on in the atmosphere for that day? And then I can kind of put together and visualize what I'm anticipating for that day, right? To see what ingredients are in place or maybe what ingredients are lacking for the day to give me a better idea about what to anticipate. That's near term. For long term, it's a little bit more complicated because, well, you're forecasting something that hasn't happened or you don't know what all the ingredients are going to be in place at that day, right? So I turn to forecast models, which is a great tool for us to use to give us a good idea about what to anticipate. Now, they're not perfect, but it gives us a good generalization to give us an idea about what might happen in a month or 2 months or whenever, right? And so I do that, but I don't just look at one. I have about 10 that I look at. Now, they're not all perfect. I like some better than others, right? But it gives me a good average about what to anticipate in the future, which is a really good way to get a forecast. A forecast is just an average of different model runs, computer runs, and data. So
that is awesome. So basically it takes a ton of patience in order to run these forecasts. I remember when I was a kid, one of the biggest reasons why I got into weather, my first grade teacher, actually, she was dating a local weatherman up in New York. And I remember his name was Norm. And I remember he literally told us to take long-term forecasts with kind of a grain of salt because everything can just change. He said, if you can't see it, it's not the here and now, or, it's not that day one, just kind of, take it with a grain of salt. Take it with, what have you, and just realize that the atmosphere is consistently changing, and that forecasters are literally continuously updating their predictions almost on the daily as those atmospheric conditions change. Is that something that you would consider to be an accurate statement or no?
Oh, hands down, 100%. The way is a good way to look at long-range forecasts is the big picture. It's a generalization of what we think might happen 3 months out. Now, knowing me, I don't even know what I'm going to eat 2 days from now, let alone know if it's going to rain or dew 3 months out, right? So, so yeah, take it as a grain of salt. It's a good outlook. That might happen, but at the end of the day, Mother Nature is going to throw a curveball, and there's going to be a couple days in there that you didn't anticipate. So I'm constantly updating my forecast, looking at forecast models just to see what Mother Nature has hidden in the pipeline.
So you would definitely agree when I say that that's why it makes having a reliable weather service, reliable forecast that much more important, and to have people that are constantly pushing new notifications in the event that Mother Nature just springs those surprises. Correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because she's still in charge at the end of the day.
Yeah, she is. Absolutely, she is. Speaking of Mother Nature, we just touched base a little bit that we are kind of pushing into fall here, and we're making predictions about our fall weather. One of the most beautiful things that I think about when it comes to the mention of fall and autumn are these beautiful leaves. What are your predictions about fall foliage? We know that people travel from the south and they travel from all over the place to come to northern Indiana and Michigan to see these things. What are your predictions now for catching that perfect fall foliage photo, or that perfect time to take that drive and to go to your favorite cider mill and what have you?
Yeah, Tia, I mean, it's already been a really beautiful fall. A lot of vibrant colors so far. A lot of that's been played in part by the dry weather that we had in September, August, and even late July, which has really caused the trees to start turning. Right now, everything's still, about a week to a week and a half ahead of schedule. This time last year, we were just now entering our peak, and now we've been in peak for about a week. There's still time to go out and view these wonderful colors. But at the end of the day, we're already mid-peak. So we're maybe even have another week left yet before we're past peak. So there's still time to go enjoy all the cider, campfires, and enjoy the leaves that are out there right now.
Yeah, so basically earlier this month we'd gone ahead and posted our peak foliage map and our predictions just based on that dry season, so to speak, where we basically had stated that from maybe October the 12th on through, I guess we had said that Halloween it would be all over and everything would be brown and starting to really be bare. Are we still holding firm on that? Are we still thinking that's pretty much how this is going to play out, or are you thinking that something has changed?
I don't really think anything has changed. Nothing significant, that is. A lot of the early trees will probably be done by Halloween. A lot of the maples are starting to wrap up. However, some of the oaks are just now turning colors. So I definitely think there's going to be some colors by Halloween, but it's not going to be as widespread as it is now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. So again, if you guys are planning on taking a trip, now's really the time to do it. Get on out there one of these weekends, whether you plan on taking a good motorcycle trip or if you plan on taking a car ride. Any of the covered bridges will be a fantastic place to go. Keep in mind that northern Indiana and the lower Michigan area, up into the Michigan mitten, as we call it, they're going to go a lot faster just because of how the seasons work and light works with Earth spinning on its axis and all that noise. And then southern Indiana, if you haven't gotten a chance, southern Indiana is going to go a little later. So you might have more time to go down to, say, like Cataract Falls and Clifty Falls and get a good look at them. But overall, I think that we're spot on with saying that end of October, early November, you're not going to be seeing too terribly much. And now's the time to really strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. So moving on, speaking of festivals and stuff, in just a few days, or in just a couple of weeks rather, the Indiana Storm Chasers will have a meet and greet session available in Warren, Indiana. We'll be set up with their Scarecrow Festival. We'll be displaying our Scarecrow seen, and we're not going to give that up just yet. Expect pictures when they're out for judging on the 26th. We'll have one of our storm chasing rigs out and available for you to kind of look at. We'll have some forecasting information available for you guys, information about how you can subscribe and become one of our sponsors as well, and get yourself a personal forecast. And then there'll be a few of our storm chasers out available for a meet and greet. You can kind of pick our brains and come see us and talk to us in the flesh. I believe, Caleb, you're planning on coming on down and attending on the 30th, aren't you?
Yeah. I should be able to be there. Should be a great day.
Should be an absolutely great day. You should come on down. Warren's a great little town. It's going to be a great block party. There's going to be all kinds of games, prizes. We're going to set up a couple games, and we'll have some prizes and giveaways for you guys. There's nothing better than one of these fall festivals from one of these small little local towns, and Warren's really, really quite special. It's a quite wonderful little town right off the 5. If you're up in Fort Wayne listening, or Bluffton, or Marion, even down in Indy, you just come on over. We'll see you there on the 30th. All the festivities start at 6 and at 8. It's 100% safe and 100% fun. We really, really hope to see you there. Not only just to support Halloween, because who doesn't love Halloween, but also to come and check out everything that is there as far as what we have to offer with Indiana Storm Chasers. So, okay, let's get into the deep, dark nitty-gritty. Things that make Chasing After Dark so wonderful. We want to know, in the spirit of Halloween, your darkest, scariest storm chasing moment.
Hands down, I'd have to say Memorial Day of last year. That storm to me just speaks Halloween, because when you think of a Halloween or a good campfire ghost story, right, it's dark out, right? You can just think of fog, so think of that as like reduced visibility. You can't see. It's eerie. And then you got the flashlight action going on with the lightning, right? It just speaks Halloween.
It does.
So the way that evening played out, and I'm sure a lot of you listening in, if you're from Northern Indiana, you remember that night pretty well. So being from Bluffton, Indiana, I didn't really have to move anywhere to intercept these storms, right? They were on my front porch. And so I started out that evening. Well, first off, what was that evening? Well, if you don't remember, we had multiple tornadoes in Northern Indiana. I think 7 or 9, somewhere in that number to be more precise. Yeah. And so the storm that I was on 3. The first storm I intercepted was up just north of Warren, between the 5 and I-69 interchange there. There was a small supercell, semi-defined. Had some rope funnels coming down. Didn't really do much, right? It was kind of in between storms, so it didn't really have that warm air to pull into, being in between storms. So it was kind of weaker in general, which is great because it was headed right to Bluffton, right? And that could have been really bad.
Disaster.
Yeah. So, but the storm to my south really gained my attention, but it just happened to be right when it was getting dark, right? And to me, I don't take night chasing lightly. It's serious. So I saw there was enough lightning on radar. I decided to go intercept it. I left Bluffton it was probably 9 o'clock, if I remember right. And I headed south to intercept the storm, and I could see on my radar that it's something that we call correlation coefficient, right, or CC scans. That allows us to depict the difference between what rain is and then junk that's flying around in the air, which is debris, right? And so I could see that debris ball on radar, which is debris being picked up by the tornado. So I knew there was a tornado on the ground, and I knew it was hitting stuff, right? So I head south, and I'm in southern Wells County, by the way, for those of you who don't know. And I'm hearing reports anywhere from a cone tornado to a large tornado, so I didn't know what I was running into. All I knew was it was pitch black, as soon as I intercepted the storm, there was no lightning anymore. The lightning just went away. So, which made me really pay more close attention to the radar. Just, okay, where am I at? Where's the storm at? And what position do I need to move to get out of it? Make sure I'm not in the way. So as I'm looking at my GPS in the radar scans, I failed to recognize that I was in what we like to call the southern Wells County dead zone, to where my radar didn't update for 5 scans. My GPS was still in the same spot for 5 scans, which was approximately about 8 minutes. And 8 minutes may not seem like long, but when you're chasing a high precipitation supercell at night, it's an eternity.
It is.
And
It is.
I called it quits after that. I knew at that point I'm sitting at an intersection, and it was pretty darn close to where this tornado was on the last scan that I had. I knew it was coming pretty close to that intersection, so I decide, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm packing up and going north to get out of the storm's way. The next morning, I saw damage pictures, and if you ever saw pictures, if you look up storm photos for that day, one of the ones you're probably going to see is a dairy farm, right? That dairy farm was in southern Wells County, and it was right next to the intersection of where I was at. And I found out it hit the dairy farm not 8 minutes after I left that spot.
Oh, boy.
And it was between 5 and 8 minutes of me leaving that position and going north. And it was an EF3, a little, almost, I forget the exact width by the National Weather Service, but it was in between 1.5 mile wide. It was a wedge EF3 at night. And so to me, that was the scariest moment. I didn't realize how close I was until the next morning. But that's the thing about chasing, though. You can't always rely on technology. You have to use common sense, right? And you have to know when to call it quits. I mean, safety's always first. So those are just things you have to watch.
Yeah, that's definitely hair-raising. And I think we can all agree that chasing at night is definitely one of those things that's best left to the experts. And even then, sometimes there's things that happen that are just too close for comfort. Knowing when to quit is definitely one of the most important things that anybody could know, especially a storm chaser. But thank you so much for sharing that one with us. We all remember that day, and we definitely remember that particular storm, especially with the dairy getting hit. But yeah, wow. So, Brian, what do you want to ask him? You've been so quiet over there.
I've been enjoying the stories, but enjoying the good stories he's been telling. I guess my question would be, what was your first tornado that you ever saw, and how did that affect your feelings towards weather in general?
Yeah, so my first tornado chase was August 24th, 2016.
Oh, that day. I remember that day.
That day.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was the first real tornado chase that I had.
But
before that, it was just general thunderstorms, hail, etc.
That day was actually a day that nobody really expected an outbreak, or even tornadoes in general. I think the day started with just a general thunderstorm risk. There was absolutely no severe risk by the SPC.
Mm. Yeah, I don't even think it was a general thunderstorm risk. It was just like there was nothing. There was zero. Everyone was focused on Iowa, which wound up being a huge bust, but then we wound up with a rather large outbreak. So, yeah, dear God, that's the one, for our listeners, that's the one that ate the Starbucks in Kokomo.
Oh, yeah, it did, didn't it?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah,
that was that tornado.
EF3, yeah,
that
Kokomo.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say that wasn't the only tornado that happened that day. There were several that did happen. A couple in Wells County, I believe, and then Kokomo got hit. I think it was twice the same day. They just never catch a break. But yeah, so tell us about that tornado. That's, how did you feel when you saw that thing? Where were you?
So I intercepted the same storm that hit Kokomo. Well, first of all, I didn't think I was going to be chasing that day. I had no intention of going out and chasing. like you said, if I remember right, I think we were actually in a marginal risk that day, but I didn't anticipate anything going tornadic by any means of the imagination, right? Until about 3 p.m. And then I saw, I was looking on radar and I was like, oh, okay, tornado warning. Well, it kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at this radar and I'm looking at the velocity and I'm like, that has got to be a huge tornado. And I'm thinking, is this an isolated event or are there more supercells in the area? And there turned out to be like 5 more. And I'm thinking, okay, the SBC hasn't seen this yet. Because at the time at Kokomo, we were still in a marginal risk. And I think they ended up going, did they go enhanced or was it just slight?
I believe we're at 5%, if I remember right.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was enhanced. But yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah, so I first intercepted that cell, which I call the Kokomo cell, it was the one that went through Kokomo. I intercepted it in Grant County, just southwest of Montpelier, Indiana. And at that point in time, there was a weak tornado on the ground, but I didn't really get a good visual of it. Near Montpelier, near the river, so there's lots of trees, and then there's some end moraines too, which are like little hills along the river. So not really a good viewing area. As I first intercepted the cell, I did something which was a rookie mistake at the time, for I had only been chasing a couple years. I found myself in what's called the bear cage, which in general doesn't really sound very good. It's a place where you don't really want to be, right? I mean, nobody wants to be in a cage with a bear. So what that means is you find yourself in the core of the storm, which is where that updraft is, which is where the tornado is typically in a supercell. So I found myself on the edge of the bear cage, and I changed positions because, well, as you know, Southern Wells County, Grant County, you're in that dead zone, right? So my radar, of course, didn't update for a couple scans. And I was observing just where I was at within the storm, just from my last known position compared to the storm. So I'm standing outside my truck, and I'm looking southwest, and I'm starting to realize it's not raining. And I could start to see a lot of rapid motion just to the west of me. And I see these rain bands coming horizontal across the field, and I decide I'm in the core. So I jump in my truck and head south about 1.5 miles, and there's this tornado on the ground in this rain route. And it was a cone tornado. It was a smaller tornado, but it was on the ground nonetheless. And so after that, I stayed to the south of the tornado, which, in case you don't know, tornadoes in Indiana and in the northern hemisphere typically move northeast, just due to the way the atmosphere is moving on those days typically. And so you want to be southwest. So I'm moving southwest parallel, and I chased it from Grant County all the way to Wilshire, Ohio. And through that time, it cycled 3 different times. It really cycled and tightened up over Wells. And then at Adams, it had the best wall cloud, the best mezzo and tail cloud I've ever seen. The mezzo is practically touching the ground. And for you listening, a mezzo is a big weather word that's called mesocyclone, which is essentially a big fancy term for rotation, right? So rotation within the cloud was basically almost touching the ground, even without a tornado on it.
I know that phenomena of seeing that mezzo come down and literally be nearly just skirting the tops of crops and what have you and being near the ground. That is something that I've seen just a few times in my career, and it's absolutely breathtaking. And it really kind of gets the hair standing up on the back of your neck. I'm sure Ryan will agree. I'm sure anyone that we ask about those scenarios will definitely agree that they're some of the most intense, and they only come with some of the most severe and most intense storms that are the best put together. August 24th will definitely be something that goes down in what I like to call weather infamy. Dear God, I definitely remember, especially the Kokomo cell. Christ. Oh, Lord. All right, so moving on. That's another one, actually, Caleb, that you could have shared for your spookiest story with it being rain wrapped like that.
Right.
Yeah, dear God.
Yeah, that one was pretty bad for sure, but it could have been a lot worse. So, just very grateful.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It definitely could have. It could have been a lot worse, but it didn't, and it turned out for the best. I don't think anybody. I think if I remember correctly, only one person died during that entire outbreak, and I think they were in Kokomo. I can't remember one just off the bat, but I know with that Starbucks collapsing, and then I know that whole shopping mall there, the Markland Mall, really kind of got ran over. I know the windows blew out of like the Sears that used to be there, and just a hot mess all the way around. We got very, very lucky with having a day that basically nobody was anticipating severe weather. So Indiana as a whole really got lucky that day. So coming off that and coming off the knowledge that no one is perfect and that the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center often get things wrong, we'll agree that everyone makes mistakes. We're only human and we can only do so much. So with all of this happening, do you feel as a chaser that chasers in general seem more interested in the science or in the thrill of the hunt?
That's a really, really good question, Tia. I can't say if I have a really, really good answer for that. I think bits and pieces of that are true, and maybe bits and pieces of it are wrong. Here's why I think that. It kind of goes back to forecasting, right? They look at the same forecast models that we do. Again, they're nothing more than an algorithm put into a computer. And computers aren't perfect. They only analyze what data you put in. And I think that meteorologists and lead forecasters at the National Weather Service, and then you have your TV meteorologists, I think, the differences between them are they're more focused on their forecasts, and I think storm chasers are more focused on the mechanics as to why things happen the way they do, because they're in the field, they're probing the storms. If that makes sense. I think, I'm just going to pick on the National Weather Service here for a minute. So they have over 120 offices across the United States. What they do is they're really, really good at putting out forecasts, right? So
right.
I think being in an office, you can't necessarily see everything that's going on from your parking lot. Rather than a storm chaser, you have the capability to leave to go to the storm. Rather, they have the capability to look at their computer and look at the storm. But whether that goes back to being more interested in the science or the forecasts, I really think it's mutual between all of the above. I mean, everybody has good days and bad days. But at the same time, I think everybody's in it for the same reason, and that's just coming up with accurate ways and relevant ways just for public safety. I think that's the main point and the main reason why chasers and the forecasters work within each other, mainly just to find out better ways and warning systems just to keep the public safe.
So while we're on the topic of...
Totally understandable.
So while we're on the subject of meteorologists, storm chasers, NWS, has there been any people who have been influences to you within the storm chasing community or even like the meteorology community? Anything that's been anybody who stood out to you as like a role model?
Yeah, for me, I'd have to say Greg Schaup. He's a local TV meteorologist at Wayne 15 in Fort Wayne. He has been a terrific influence on my life just for the passion and drive of science that he has. It's really rubbed off on me. I have had the opportunity to go to the station and hang out a couple times with him. And I got the opportunity to pick his mind a little bit, interview him for a couple classes and papers that I had to write for college. And I just loved how into the science he was. He is 100% science-based. Not so much, he didn't seem to be more focused on, the a paparazzi or anything. He was science driven, which I really admired that from him, just because a TV meteorologist, I think a lot of time they get the reputation for, I'm on TV, look at me. He didn't rub off that way. And I loved his passion for science. He loved just why things do the way they do and finding solutions for the problems. And I think that was just really cool to see. And the experience that he had was really humbling, too. Just to hear him say how many stations and states that he's worked in, just coming from California and working there. And he's just worked all over the place. And I think that experience really speaks volumes just in his work and publications. And just from from getting to know him, I think is just really cool, and he's just really been a big mentor of mine, and we still chat every once in a while, and he loves to answer questions, so I really admire that about him.
That's awesome. I think people underestimate how hard TV meteorologists work. It's not just, going on air and showing or pointing to a map. There's a lot of detail that goes into it, and also a lot of the people within the public don't realize how much hate these people get, especially because they break into programming to broadcast tornado warnings or severe weather in general. It's a really hard job being a TV meteorologist, and I don't think we give them the credit that they deserve, personally.
No, I completely agree. Even, my, Eric's grandmother, she absolutely will incessantly whine whenever there's even, I know in Missouri, a lot of times they'll do just a loud, like beep, beep, beep type noise or what have you, and then scroll the warning or the watch across the bottom of the screen. And unless there's an active tornado on the ground, they really don't break in, or there's an active tornado warning, they don't break in. But even that seems to trigger some people to just want to throw a can at the TV, and they can't stand it. But these are also the same people, in my opinion, that if something were to happen and their home or their families were to be impacted by severe weather, they would be the first people whining that something wasn't done or there wasn't enough warning or what have you.
You can't have it both ways. So cover a very broad area.
You can't.
So just because your house isn't being impacted or your town isn't being impacted doesn't mean the next town over, whether it be 5 miles away or 30 miles away, isn't being impacted. So it's not just the weather that's happening in your backyard. They cover a very broad area. So just because it's not happening in your backyard doesn't mean it's happening elsewhere. I'm about to wrap this up here, but I want to ask you a few more questions, Caleb, while we have you on here. Do you have any hobbies besides weather-related stuff? I believe you farm a lot, or you're very involved in the agricultural community.
Yeah, so my family themselves, they don't farm. However, I do help out on the farm for my neighbors, which are basically like family to me. But some of my favorite hobbies that I really love to do is fishing, boating, and I love downhill skiing as well.
Oh, really? You see, I've always wanted to snowboard, but I've never got the courage to actually go skiing. It's just, I feel like I'd break my ankles or I'd break my leg doing it.
Yeah, skiing. Okay, so I tried snowboarding one time because, growing up watching the S Games on TV, I'm like, those dudes are cool. So I'm like, I'm going to get on this snowboard and try it. I found out after a lot of tumbling down hills, skiing is a lot easier in my opinion. Now, those of you listening that do snowboard, I have to tip my hat to you, because after about 1,000 tumbles, I can't do it. Skiing's a lot easier. And then one other hobby that I really, really enjoy and have a passion for is totally not related to any of those of which I mentioned, is theater. I have a huge passion for creative arts and theater, and I do a lot of stage acting as well for different plays, comedy, farces, etc.
I didn't know that.
I really have a passion for that. Yeah.
That is totally awesome. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to ask him if he played any sports in high school.
Yeah, baseball. I played baseball. I was a first baseman at Bluffton, and then I played for the City League as well.
Awesome. What position did you play?
First base.
We share a position.
First base and then center field.
That's awesome, man. Tia, do you have any questions?
I think congratulations are actually in order. Didn't you just tie the knot?
I did, yeah. I just got married this past week on the 10th, and I just flew back from our honeymoon here this afternoon.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is so awesome, man. Congratulations on those epic nuptials, and we wish you and the new missus all the best. And how does she feel about all this? How does she feel about your passion for extreme weather?
Yeah, so when we first started dating, I told her that I was a storm chaser, and at first she kind of was like looking at me like, oh, well, that's cool. She didn't really take me serious until we really started dating, and she goes, oh, you really are a storm chaser. I just thought you meant like you like storms or something. And I was like,
I thought it was a metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. So, Twister reference there for those listening. Yeah. So she's all right with it. She likes to do like, for those of you listening, like when we're in the field, we do comm checks on Zillow just to keep our chasers and staff informed of where we're at. I have to do the same thing with her. So as I'm doing comm checks with ISC, I'm also doing phone chats with her just to let her know where I'm at, and she likes to know like what's going on. So as long as I keep her informed of where I'm at and I'm safe, she thinks it's really cool. So
that is totally awesome. I think it's great when our significant others and our spouses totally gel with what we're doing, whether they want to have an active role in it or if they don't, and they just want to make sure that you're safe. But I think that having that understanding is something that is truly awesome. And that's actually probably something that I think we should totally talk about in future episodes of Chasing After Dark. And maybe we can convince your missus to come on and be one of our additional guests, or we can get the spouses of the Indiana Storm Chasers to come on and kind of share their tales and explain what it's like to be married or sharing a life with people as extreme as storm chasers. So, again, I think that we have definitely had a wonderful episode of Chasing After Dark. I totally want to extend an invitation to have you come back on the show. This has been an awesome time talking with you. Looking forward again to seeing you, hopefully, at Warren's Scarecrow Festival on the 30th. And again, I'm hoping to see more of our listeners at that particular event as well. Check out the peak foliage map if you haven't already. That is on our website. And actually not our website, but our Facebook. We'll also, if it hasn't already been posted there, if it's gotten buried, we'll make sure that's posted all over our social media as a whole. And then along with more information about the Scarecrow Festival will be posted shortly. I think we might actually do a costume contest. So come see us at that booth or at our booth. You can't miss our big white storm chasing F-350, the Vindicator. You can get a photo taken with the Vindicator, and you can get a photo taken with the members of ISC that are there. And then we will make sure that you get to see more of Caleb in action, because we know we love our forecasters, and we will pick his brain even more on our Facebook. Sign up, subscribe, become a sponsor, and you will absolutely be able to get a personalized forecast. It might even be from Caleb. You never know. But that being said, again, Caleb, thank you so much. You were such an awesome human being, and a total jack of all trades when it comes to so many things. We definitely thank you not only as a storm chaser, but as a farmer. And look forward to talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast. For those of you listening, come see me at the Scarecrow Festival. Ask some questions, pick my mind, and thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming on, Caleb. Definitely going to have you back here at some point. But like Tia said, like Caleb said, thank you guys for listening. We've reached the end of another episode of Chasing After Dark. You can connect with us on Facebook at Indiana Storm Chasers.
Or by surfing the web to indstormchasers.com. Don't forget to subscribe to receive those personalized forecasts. I'm going to keep pimping that out, and other premium content. There's a lot that you don't want to miss.
That's for sure. We'll see you guys in the next episode. So stay safe.
And don't get twisted.